was required in the initial design was something that a Land Rover could be driven on, and then it would be use the Land Rover as a means of power for the propulsion system, and then it would go over ice as well as water. We came up with the idea of using these two hulls in a raft design with paddle wheels which would rise over any lumps of ice which they came across in the crossing, any lumps of ice in the water. Also, when they got to stretches of ice, we initially thought that the vehicle could stay on the raft and the paddle wheels would propel the vehicle on the raft across the ice, but that was a very early idea which was later dropped. The hydraulics is coupled up to the PTO at the rear of the Land Rover. Then the Land Rover is set at 1800 RPM, which is gives the maximum power output from the Land Rover, which is 110 horsepower. And with the power loss through the transmission, we actually achieve 40 horsepower at the PTO at the rear of the Land Rover, which we've found is enough to propel the raft at 6 knots with the present propulsion system. The way that the Land Rover is loaded onto the raft is by means of two independent ramps at the front of the raft. They are mounted independently to allow for any unevenness in the edge of the ice when loading on and driving the Land Rover off. When the Land Rover is actually on the raft, it is secured by some 4 ratchet tie-down straps, one on each corner, which when the vehicle is positioned and the PTO drive is coupled up, we don't want the vehicle moving, therefore it's secured with 4 of these straps. The controls are mounted inside the Land Rover with cables running to the back of the Land Rover, which are coupled up to the hydraulic pumps. 1 cable for each hydraulic pump, left and right. The paddle wheels themselves are held at the correct level by 1 winch per paddle wheel. The winch is also used to lift the paddle wheels out of the water completely when the raft's being transported over the ice. The paddle wheels originally were designed so that they would float at the optimum level to give most efficiency, but we have since found that the weight of the paddle wheels doesn't allow that to happen, so the winches actually hold the paddle wheel at the correct height. The main material in the hulls is a fiberglass composite because of its strength and weight. All the fittings on the hull are aluminium because of the corrosion resistance and again weight. The fittings have backing plates inside the hull to stop them from being ripped out when they're under load, which is also the case with the beams, the cross beams. They also have backing plates and side plates because these take the main loads. The beams themselves are made of 3 different pieces of aluminium to give the strength which is required and also keeping weight down. Weight is very important in the manufacture of this raft. The hatches are there to give storage space within the hulls. We have the floor has been enclosed so that it's easier to walk around the vehicle when it's on the hulls. winches at this end enable the paddle wheels arms to be lifted out of the water for transportation when the hulls are being towed beyond the Land Rover, and also lowered to the correct length, correct height when they're actually propelling the raft through the water. The paddle wheels have been modified from the original design. The original design was enclosed on the sides with this quite heavy rim around to avoid any damage when coming into contact with the ice. But after the initial sea trials, we found that this was very inefficient, as when the paddle wheels were revolving, they were just picking up a solid pocket of water and there was nowhere for it to go. So what we've done is cut out the sides of each pocket and extended the blades, and we found that this increased the efficiency immensely, increasing the speed from about 1 knot to near 6 knots. The power pack used to drive the paddle wheels is a hydraulic system coupled to the PTO drive from the back of the Land Rover. We've chosen the hydraulic system in preference to belts or chains or any other mechanical drive, because the mechanical drives couldn't cope with the power needed to drive this raft using these paddle wheels. The only drawback with the hydraulic system is that it's quite heavy, with the tank full of oil, and the actual pumps themselves are quite weighty, but they do the job quite well and has been very successful so far. The hulls were manufactured in this shape as opposed to a conventional V shape of a hull to enable the paddle wheels to be further apart, making the whole raft more maneuverable. And also, with them being this shape, when towed behind the Land Rover, they act more as a sledge and less like a boat.
Nails done. Girls with their nails done.